Well, good morning, everyone. Here we found ourselves at third and the last session of the Principle of Music Composing Conference, this year's edition. We look forward to hear two more interesting presentations today. And I would like to invite our first speaker this morning, Malgorzata Kaniowska from the University of Silesia in Katowice, Poland, to present to us her topic, Thomas Fortmann and his musical universes.
Thank you, Paula. It's a great honor to open this outstanding conference's last session. So first, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to participate in this exceptional event. My presentation concerns the profile of the remarkable composer Thomas Fortmann and his musical universes. Yes, we have presentation. Oh, thank you. Thomas Fortmann grew up in a harmonious family environment in a small village, Gertensee, between Bern and Thun in Switzerland. His mother, a soprano from Germany, sang in Zurich when war broke out. His mother remained in Switzerland, working for the Städte Theater and the theater in Basel. She met Thomas's future father after one of the car races he won. Although he was a merchant and owner of a well-known company in Bern, he gave the impression of being the person with the most artistic soul of the two parents. Music was a constant part of Thomas's childhood, heavily influenced by his mother's daily singing exercises, who was still 7 months pregnant and performing in Bohemia, and the company of his parents' musical friends, who often made music at their home. Fortmann's education was not harmonious, especially in comparison with his siblings and later his daughters. Due to his dyslexia, which is little known then, he recalled his school period as the least happy of his life. His piano teacher at the Bern Conservatory also found it difficult to accept a student who wanted to change the chords and phrasing of the great masters to his liking, and was reluctant to learn more Clementi sonatas, bringing Glenn Miller notes instead, which were labeled rubbish and landed on the floor. During one of the piano lessons, when Thomas began to improvise, he and his teacher decided to end his musical torture. Probably because of his school failures, Thomas escaped into golf to rebuild his self-esteem. He was a national team member for 10 years, winning titles as Swiss champion, European junior champion, and many other international successes. Despite many adversities, composing was his only possible life path from the beginning. After some experiments with rock music with his schoolmates, a music label connected him with the well-known Swiss group Krokodil, with whom he formed the Demon Tour. The group's songs were distributed worldwide by United Artists. However, Thomas did not feel comfortable in this world. Alcohol, drugs, screaming audiences, and playing the same songs over and over again were not for him. Unlike the other professional musicians, he was only a teenager and still attended school. He soon did a farewell tour with the band. Fortmann wrote his first hit at the age of 16. One of his recordings, which had languished in the record company as a demo, was considered a hit by the group Love Generation, resulting in him winning the German Music Award Golden Europe. Fortmann then focused on composing for other artists. He composed more than 100 hit songs released in more than 27 countries. His songs were recorded by well-known German rock stars such as Udo Lindenberg, Love Generation, Jürgen Drews, and British artists such as Alexis Korner and Italian singer Daniela Davoli. Fortmann's composition of the rock musical Tell in 1977, featuring stars such as Udo Lindenberg, Sue Kramer, Alexis Korn, and others, caused a scandal in Switzerland. At the same time, the musical hit all the German language charts. At the age of 26, Thomas abandoned his career as a rock musician and devoted himself to further studies in composition and instrumentation. By giving up rock music, he began a long period of transformation. He was not yet well acquainted with classical music at the time, but wanted to master its craft. He began to study music theory, especially the compositions of Hindemith and Schoenberg, and to analyze the scores of Strauss and Wagner. If he needed help, he was supported in his research and study by an older friend, the composer Lucas Maria Valentin, who had taught at the Music Academy in Berlin before the war. Fortmann became interested in music theory and philosophy, which led him down paths such as ancient Greek music, numerical symbolism, Gregorian chant, and anthroposophical sciences. That period was a time of intensive study outside of music as well. In Thomas's search, he came across the teachings of Saint Francis of Assisi and tried to live according to them for a while in the small Italian town of Ticino. During this happy phase of classical music study, he wrote his first classical work, the Oratorio Francescano. From the 1980s onwards, after the birth of his daughters and a move to Tuscany, Thomas embarked on a new phase of life. He and his partner, Pia, devoted much time to their relationship and raising their children, spending 2 winter seasons with them in Thailand, then 5 years in Costa Rica before finally returning to Tuscany when their daughter started high school. As he recalls, the birth of his daughters and the move to Tuscany where, on his first visit to the village, the local choir, unaware of his presence, sang just 2 of his folk songs, marked the beginning of a new phase in his life. In my interview, Thomas stated, "I don't think my music reflects my time, because my life has been different from most people's. I have lived in the countryside all my life, and I don't feel comfortable in big cities. The point of reference in everyday life in the countryside is nature. However, nature in no way corresponds to our humanistic, social, or religious values, because it is unjust, cruel, and ruthless. But as a whole, it has something wonderful, beauty. So it is not surprising that one of the important criteria in my work is the pursuit of beauty. Of course, this is a subjective, relative, and difficult to define concept, but in my case, it is mainly shaped by nature, which is the countryside is always seen in its harmonious totality. The city can never be seen entirely, only the fragment surrounding us. This impression leads to a different view of the criteria essential to us in the creative act. Like every human being, I have my own conditions. For example, there is only one line in my right hand, where usually there should be 2, the head line and the hard line. One can observe a striving to combine opposites in my life and music. When composing, my intellectual work with forms and structures unconsciously tends towards sensual intensification and vice versa. For example, each dodecaphonic tone series has been conceived by me as a melody, felt in the traditional sense. In extreme cases, as in the dodecaphonic blues, a series of tones intended to resolve tonality is matched to the genre most striving for tonality, as in the sonata for violin and piano or sonata for saxophone and piano. Thanks to Thomas's experience with rock, jazz, and classical music, the different concepts of modernity can come together, not as a crossover, but as an original expression of a contemporary feeling of music. In this way, his composition structure vitality, logic, and sensual effect form a natural symbiosis. After he departed from rock music, he first became fascinated by Annie von Lange's anthroposophical study, Man, Music, and Cosmos, and ancient Greek music, which he came across through a book he found in Antiquarian. His first classical compositions reflected these influences, the Francisco Oratorio and the Pythagorean Symphony. He was particularly impressed by the ancient Greek approach to music as a simultaneously mathematical and philosophical explanation of sound phenomena through intervals and numbers. This influence gave rise to the work Warriors of the Night. The road to Gregorian chant was close from here, as exemplified by the work Concertino Gregoriano. However, the concept of 12-tone music and dodecaphony and the treatise by Paul's Hindemith, Unterweisung im Tonsatz, proved crucial to its further development. He considered Hindemith's concept objectively the best he had studied, as it was not based on assumptions, but solely on the natural occurring aliquot scale. Nevertheless, the concept of 12-tone composition fascinated him even more in his subsequent work, as he did not adhere to orthodox doctrine from the outset, creating his ideas through his interpretation. He expressed his theoretical fascinations in 3 essays, in which he included, among other things, his observation of the significance of numbers in music and his concept of 12 tones. In particular, in the pieces Requiem for Unborn Child and Ladyboy combined Hindemith's study of intervals with serial dodecaphony. Despite their complex structure, both compositions are well digested by the listener and have a strong emotional appeal. Alongside the string quartet Tango Cattolico, they are among his favorites. This penchant for composition using all 12 tones is practically present in all his later works, be they chamber pieces such as Grafenek 1940, symphonic pieces such as Arenal or Etruria Elegy No. 1, or theatrical pieces such as Vaudeville for Leontine Götterspiele. 2 additional elements are characteristic of his musical language. Firstly, what he calls cantabile, and secondly, a rhythmic quality requiring exact ensemble performance. Cantabile is revealed in his numerous song cycles, choral and theatrical works, and chamber and orchestral compositions. Thomas Fortmann and his family spent the longest time of his life in Tuscany, but he always lived in Costa Rica for more than 5 years and spent 7 months in Thailand. And one of his daughters lived for a while in the Gambia. These impressions influenced some of his composition. However, for the most part, his personal impressions and approach to life are more important to him than folkloric or ethnographic references. There are exceptions, however, such as in the Quartet Out of the Tropics, where the first movement, Alalake, refers to the sweetness of Malian folk melodies from the Gambia. In the violin sonata, Dixieland, blues, and ragtime form the basis of 3 movements. This idea was an enjoyable compositional adventure, as nothing strives for tonality like the blues. At the same time, Fortmann expanded all the compositions into a 12-tone series that remains in contrast to traditional tonality. So let's listen to an excerpt from the first movement, Alalake, from the Quartet Out of the Tropics. For Fortmann, the most important thing is impression. For example, the sound shape of the composition Etruria Elegy is influenced by the rolling hills of Tuscany. Plus, the introductory violin solo symbolizes the flight of a bird, so crucial to the Etruscan culture. The Arenal Concerto from Costa Rica is a soundtracked contrast between the menacing beauty of the volcano and the beauty of the springs, lake, and lush vegetation that inspired Thomas to create his composition. He did not intend it as a sound illustration, but more as an expression of his feelings in this quiet and affluent area where the awareness of the volcano's powerful violence resonates subliminally. The marimba plays a central role in the piece, as its rare and the precious wood makes it the national instrument of Costa Rica. So, I propose listen from beginning of second movement from the Arenal concert. Thomas Fortmann is also highly active in organizing local cultural life, which he has co-created for 30 years. Firstly, in the 1990s, he founded Amiata Ensemble with musicians from the provinces of Grosseto and Siena, which has been successful on tour. The musicians' proficiency, the high level of performances, and the exceptional programs featuring composition by Messiaen, Bartók, Fortmann, Zappa, Piazzolla, and Walton have always generated great enthusiasm among audiences and critics alike. The ensemble has carried out many radio broadcasts. The Amiata Ensemble's activities led to the creation of the Accademia Amiata and its festival Toscano della Cultura, one of the most innovative festivals in Italy in 1990s. Thomas Fortmann founded the New Class Festival in Arcidoso a few years ago. Class, a new music festival at the intersection of classical and jazz idioms, offers a one-of-a-kind experience. Set in the historic center of Arcidoso, Italy, and in the heart of Tuscany, the Class International Music Festival features a fully integrated musical journey for attendees. Fortmann is also the initiator and co-creator of multimedia projects such as Grafenek 1940. Grafenek, for many years, the hunting and holiday palace of Prince Karl Eugen von Württemberg, was a culture place in the 18th century where music, opera, and ballet was cultivated. In 1928, the Sumerian Foundation took over the palace as a place for people with disabilities. In 1939, it was confiscated by the National Socialist State for Reich purposes. Between January 1940 and December of that year, 10,654 disabled and mentally ill people were murdered there in the gas chamber. In trying to make the unimaginable number of victims comprehensible, it became vital that it should never just be about numbers, but that it was essential to put a face on the individual victims. Over the year, Johann Maeder, German sculptor and art historian, has created 1,654 terracotta figures, each individually modeled with a unique face. Visitors to the palace could take the figurine home with them. In this way, they can assume posthumous patronage and provide the person with a place of remembrance. Thomas Fortmann proposed organizing a memorial concert for the victims of that crime while contemplating the installation Grafenek by Johann Maeder. The results of collaboration between Fortmann, violinist Helmut Lipski, and Johann Mayer was a concert that provides a musical history of the castle and the crime there. The concert program begins with a Renaissance introduction, Alemanda con tripla by Fortmann. This is followed by a composition by the two authors, Fortmann and Lipski, on themes taken from Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach's Wittenberg sonatas, which were dedicated to Prince Karl Eugen von Wittenberg. Helmut Lipski then used the motifs of the Ode to Joy in this piece Iberm Sterzenzelt sicher wonnen. The concert concluded with the composition Grafenek 1940, reflecting the journey of a single person leaving the mental institution on grey buses, traveling to the castle, their arrival and their death. The tempo is 60 is marked at the end with a metronome. Each beat stands for a victim, and it would last about 3 hours to illustrate the amount of 10,654. Let's see the trailer for Grafenek. During the classical period, many chamber works, songs, symphonies, concertos, oratorios, and musical productions were written. Constant development and the search for the appropriate form corresponding to the content of a new work allowed Thomas Fortmann to develop original ideas. Through his personality, heterogeneous and often even contradictory modernist impulses can be playfully combined into a unity. Construction and vitality, logic and sensual effect are by no means mutually exclusive in his compositions. He received grants and commissions from the cities of Zurich and Bern, the Swiss government, the European Union, Zurich Opera, Open Opera St. Gallen, Mozart Festival, Trento, and many others. Fortmann, although he bears the name Thomas, has no particular attachment to it, and until his move to Italy asks to be called Tommy. He is also annoyed by the custom of mentioning the year of birth, as it does not indicate either the work's quality or the artist's artistic development. He believes that in the digital age, when all musical eras and genres are present at the same time, the year of birth is no longer relevant to the style of the compositions created. The music of Thomas Fortmann does not subscribe to any particular school of thought. He studied the various composition technique but maintained a critical point of view towards them. These searches led to developing a notable personal style, often united different, sometimes even contrary, impulses of the modern. Formalistic concepts serve him mainly as a method of transportation and as a playground, resulting in very original ideas. It is, however, always important to him, despite the frequent use of complex structures, to directly communicate with the listener and make an emotional impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Malgorzata, for this wonderful insight into Thomas Fortmann's life and work. If there are any questions from the public. I would like to address you with a question. I was wondering if you can call Thomas Fortmann's work as autobiographical one. We could see that he was very sensitive to external sources of inspiration, yet did he express his own life through his work? Could you?
No, not directed. So everything in Fortmann's life is only impulse to create new words, new worlds of music, new vision. So when I first, Thomas, 6 years ago, during the rehearsal, when I was working on the premiere of his composition, The Murder of Buttercup, he seemed to me, he seemed to me like a humble man, very focused on his creative work. So when I learned more about his life, it seemed very interesting to me why someone gave up fame and money to start a different life as a classical composer. This is unusual phenomena in these times. So for Fortmann, every inspiration, such as ethnic, Gregorian chant, dodecaphony, etc., or rock and of course jazz music, is for him only an impulse to create a new vision of life, of music, of life of sounds.
Great. Thank you, Malgorzata.
Thank you very much.
So we will proceed to our next speaker, who will present their paper through Zoom. So Nana Amowee Dawson from the University of Cape Coast in Ghana will present us the interplay of genre, redefining Ghanaian music through ethno-contempo fusion across generations. Nana, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, and good morning to all of you. My name is Nana Amowee Dawson. On the interplay of genres, ethnic and contemporary fusion in Sika by Ochiami Kwame and Kofi Kinata. I reworked on the title a bit, but it's the same thing. Yeah. For this morning's presentation, I'll be focusing on the general background, and then I'll move to the conceptual framework, which is cross-genre composition. And then I'll also move on to the theoretical framework of the paper. And then I will move to the methodology, the analysis of the song that I will be talking about, and then move to the conclusion, and then we will listen to the song. Ghana's music scene has long been shaped by a rich interplay between traditional sounds and global influences, fostering a dynamic landscape that evolved with each generation. This presentation focuses on Sika. Sika means money, a composition by two of Ghana's finest. They are Ochiami Kwame and Kofi Kinata, which exemplifies the fusion of traditional high life and hip life with contemporary rap, drill, and brass band music. The work encapsulates the trajectory of Ghanaian music where genre blending becomes a tool for cultural expression and a medium for addressing complex societal themes. The song's thematical exploration of money and the uncertainties accompanying economic pursuits underscores how music can reflect both the aspirations and the challenge of modern life. High life, with its rich rhythms and storytelling tradition, forms the historical bedrock of this genre fusion. The genre originated in early 20th century Ghana and has played a pivotal role in shaping Ghana's musical identity and narrative style. Hip life emerged in the late 20th century, bridges the storytelling essence of high life with hip hop's global reach, becoming a platform for youth expression and social commentary. The modern genres of rap and drill introduce distinct rhythmic and lyrical elements that resonate strongly with younger audiences and reflect broader global musical trends. The inclusion of brass band music enriches the composition further, evoking communal and celebratory associations rooted in local traditions. Gender fusion in the context of the study goes beyond merely merging musical styles. It acts as a transformative practice, degrees of artistic communication, and expands the scope of cultural narratives, can be interwoven to address present contemporary issues. The theme of economic pursuits and uncertainties surrounding success are particularly relevant in Ghana, where balancing ambition and unpredictability is a familiar challenge. The storytelling strength of high life provides an effective foundation for these themes, while the addition of rap and drill introduces a direct and resilience that resonates across generations. This paper argues that Sika epitomizes the dynamic interaction between ethnic and contemporary music, illustrating how genre blending transcends generational divides and challenges established genre conventions. By harmonizing traditional and modern elements, these two musicians pay tribute to Ghana's musical heritage while contributing to a broader conversation about cultural identity in contemporary music. The analysis is grounded in the conceptual framework of cross-genre composition, demonstrating how traditional and modern elements are seamlessly integrated. Theoretical perspectives from interculturalism offers insight into the significance of these interactions, while collaborative music serves as a methodological approach to explore the of musical analysis further informs the examination, providing a comprehensive view of the technical and thematic dimensions of the piece. This approach enhances the understanding of how genre fusion mirrors the interaction between ethnicity and modernity in music. Now let me go to the conceptual framework. Cross-genre composition is a significant aspect of contemporary music that combines different musical traditions to create innovative soundscapes. This concept is essential for understanding the music, Sika. The musicians create a dynamic piece that reflects Ghana's evolving musical landscape and cultural identity by fusing high life, hip life, rap, drill, and brass band music. Cross-genre composition refers to the integration of distinct musical styles into a cohesive piece. It serves as a form of artistic expression and a vehicle for redefining cultural narratives and engaging broader audiences. In Sika, cross-genre composition allows the musicians to explore economic ambition and uncertainty themes, mirroring real-life experiences in contemporary Ghana. High life music has been a cornerstone of Ghanaian culture since the early 20th century, known for its upbeat tempos and storytelling elements that reflect the social cultural context of the time. It integrates African rhythms with Western instruments such as brass bands, which have roots in colonial military traditions but were adapted to local tastes, thus becoming symbols of communal celebrations and identity. Hip life emerged in the late 20th century as a modernized evolution of high life, combining its melodic and rhythmic qualities with hip hop's lyrical and stylistic influence. This fusion allows for a greater flexibility in addressing contemporary social issues and resonates with younger audiences who sought a bridge between traditional and global music. Rap and drill music have gained global prominence for their direct and bold expression of resilience, aspiration, and societal critique. Drill, in particular, is noted for its distinct rhythms and raw lyrical delivery, which have found resonance among younger demographics worldwide. The incorporation of rap and drill in Sika infuses the composition with contemporary energy and allows for a powerful narrative style that complements the storytelling of high life and hip life. The inclusion of brass band music enriches the composition further, creating a multi-layered sound that evokes both nostalgia and modernity, thus bridging generational and cultural gaps. By understanding cross-cultural composition as a transformative practice, Sika's analysis highlights how traditional and modern elements can be interwoven to create culturally grounded and forward-looking music. This conceptual framework provides basis for examining the interplay of these genres, um, examining how the interplay of these genres can redefine artistic expression and contribute to a more extensive dialogue and cultural continuity and adaptation. Now, the theoretical framework is interculturalism. Interculturalism is a theoretical perspective that emphasizes the interaction and exchange between different cultural expressions, fostering mutual respect and understanding. In the context of this study, interculturalism provides a lens for understanding how Sika reflects and engages with issues of cultural identity and generational divides in Ghana. The concept of interculturalism goes beyond the mere coexistence of different cultural practices. It examines how these practices interact to create new cultural meanings. In Ghana, the fusion of high life, hip life, rap, drill, and brass band music showcases interculturalism by blending indigenous and global musical styles. High life, originating in the colonial period, combined traditional African rhythms with Western instruments and harmonic structures. This musical form was a significant means of cultural expression, conveying themes relevant to everyday life in Ghana. Hip life, which emerged in the 20th century, further incorporated hip hop influences into high life's framework, creating a genre that resonated with the youth and addressed contemporary social issues. The inclusion of rap and drill, contemporary music genres with international prominence, exemplifies Ghana music's global reach and adaptability. These genres are known for their distinctive rhythms, lyrical intensity, and modern production techniques. By integrating these traditional sounds, Sika symbolizes the fluidity of cultural identity, bridging heritage with modernity to create music that appeals to different generations. Brass band music, historically tied to local celebrations and social events, adds another layer of communal and cultural significance to the composition. The intercultural nature of Sika reflects the broader context of globalization and the ongoing negotiation of identity in Ghana. This musical integration showcases how the local and the global can intersect to produce new cultural expressions, challenging the notion of cultural purity and emphasizing a dynamic, evolving identity. Through this blend, music can transcend generational divides and um, resonating with older audiences who appreciate high life and brass band tradition, while engaging younger listeners drawn to rap and drill. Theoretical insights from interculturalism demonstrate that genre fusion in Sika reflects the musician's creative response to cultural shifts and mirrors the complex social fabric of contemporary music. This interaction serves as a platform for dialogue on how traditional and modern influences coexist, intersect, and transform one another. The composition exemplifies new forms of artistic expression that respect tradition while embracing innovation. Now, the methodology that I use is collaborative musicking. Collaborative musicking is essential to understand how the song Sika was created. As Small, 1998, explains, musicking includes everything related to music making, from performance to composition to listening, highlighting how music is a group activity. This method emphasizes teamwork, where each contributor helps shape the final song. Sika is an excellent example of this approach, showing how musicians work together to blend different genres and styles. Ochapi Kwame has been critical in sorry. He is known for mixing rap with spoken word and melody, creating a unique style that connects the traditional high life with traditional high life storytelling. Kofi Kinata, who gained recognition in the 2000s, adds a different but complementary style. His music mixes high life with modern rap and incorporates elements from traditional brass band music, giving it a rich melodic quality. Ochami Kwame initiated the collaboration on Sika after noticing Kofi Kinata's unique talent and the chance to explore new musical styles together. This project is significant for Kofi Kinata as it is his first time performing on a drill beat, skillfully blending rap, high life, and drill music. This choice shows how collaborative musicking allows artists to combine their styles while exploring themes of economic ambition and the risk of financial success. In Sika, Kofi Kinata mainly handles the melodic sections using his high life and brass band music background. His contribution gives the track a lively and celebratory feel, echoing the sound of traditional Ghanaian festivals. Achami Kwame complements Kinata's rap verses, combining rhythm and melody, creating a dynamic narrative that highlights themes of hope and economic struggle. This clear division of roles shows how collaborative musicking can connect different musical traditions and attract variety of listeners. The collaboration in Sika is impactful because it shows how blending different musical perspectives can create a work more incredible than the sum of its parts. The transition between genres invite listeners to enjoy various musical textures, reflecting a smooth blend of ethnic and contemporary music. Using their strength, Ochiami Kwame and Kofi Kinata created a song that appealed to older and younger audiences, illustrating the potential of collaborative musicking as a powerful tool in today's music composition. Now, to break down the music, I use Philip Tack's model of music analysis. Now, Philip Tack's analytical frameworks, particularly outlined in his work from 1982 and 2012, are essential for studying popular music's intricate connection with cultural narratives and audience interpretation. His comprehensive approach examines musical structures through a multi-layered lens that integrates music, cultural, and semiotic elements. Some of his parameters are hypothetical subtext and mood. This explores a musical piece's mood and connection to social and cultural context, focusing on lyrics and musical elements like melody and harmony. Another feature is stylistic features and genres. This identifies the stylistic markers that place a song within specific musical tradition, including genre influences, instrumentation, and arrangement techniques. Another parameter by Philip is musical structure and form. This highlights how different sections of a song, that is verses, choruses, and instrumental breaks, interact, contributing to the song's coherence and thematic focus. Another parameter is also intertextuality. This identifies musical references to other works, showcasing a composition's place within a broader musical context. And then the last one is semiotics and connotation. This also examines how musical elements evoke emotions and cultural meanings, revealing how cultural codes influence listener interpretation. By employing tax methodologies, the analysis of Sika can delve into the interaction between traditional high life, hip life, rap, and contemporary drill music, examining how these elements come together to convey themes of money and ambition within the social-cultural landscape of Ghana. Now, let me move to the analysis of the of the music. So, Sika was released on March 1st, 2021. The music explores themes of financial success, emphasizing the importance of discipline, perseverance, resilience, and hard work in achieving one's dream and overcoming economic challenges. Through thought provoking lyrics, Sika sheds light on societal perceptions of individuals who triumph over adversity, sparking curiosity about their journey to success. The song offers a motivational message encouraging listeners to strive for self-made success and revel in the fruits of their labor, asserting that personal accomplishment warrants enjoyment and celebration. Now let's move to the musical structure. The music follows a modified strophic form with verses and refrains, but with variations and additions. It begins with a short introduction, followed by three verses delivered in different styles. The refrain appears thrice with slight changes or variations each time. The second song section transitions the song into high lifestyle and it ends with an instrumental postlude featuring horns and conga drums. The structure keeps the song interesting while providing a solid framework for their lyrics and musical ideas to develop. Now, the rhythmic and melodic analysis. Rhythmically, the song is rooted in in a drill rap beat, setting an energetic tone. However, high life influences emerge, especially in the refrain and postlude. Creative band elements are also subtly woven in, adding another layer of texture. Melodically, the song uses repeating musical phrases called ostinatos as accompaniment, played by different instruments like electric guitars and synths. The catchy melodies, along with processed bass lines and percussive elements, contribute to the song's overall groove. The combination of rhythmic and melodic elements creates a dynamic soundscape that bridges different genres and appeals to wide audience. For instrumentation arrangement, Sika showcases a diverse mix of traditional and electronic instruments. The core band includes the drum set, the bass, guitars, and horns, providing a solid foundation. Electronic sound elements like synth, the 808 bass, and process sounds add modern texture and depth. The arrangement of the song is strategically designed to highlight the interplay of genres. The introduction sets uh, the introduction sets a drill rap vibe, and the verses blend drill and high life. The refrain is dominated by high life, creating a seamless flow um, between styles. The use of specific chords and production techniques, such as risers, orchestral hits, and various effects, further enhances the sonic experience and emotional impact. The music also uses electro-musical effects like risers to build tension and anticipation, orchestral hits for dramatic impact, reverbs and echoes to create a sense of space and depth. The use of genre-specific effects further enhances the song's hybrid nature, bridging traditional and contemporary sound. On textual analysis, the lyrics of Sika focuses on financial success of the challenges people face in achieving it. Kinate's verses celebrates hard work and the right to enjoy one's wealth without judgment. He emphasizes that his success is self-made and doesn't come at the expense of others, or shall endure in pursuing a better life, highlighting themes of resilience and perseverance. He also critiques societal double standards where poverty is ignored and but wealth is scrutinized. Yes, the lyrics combined with the music paints a vivid picture of the socio-economic landscape in Ghana. They encourage listeners to strive for their dreams while challenging societal norms surrounding wealth and poverty. Now, the song Sika deeply embodies the interplay between ambition, resilience, and societal perspectives of wealth within the contemporary Ghanaian context. Central to its narrative is a tension between personal success and public perception. Through Kofi Kinata's verses, the theme of self-sufficient triumph shines, emphasizing hard work as a path to joy and fulfillment. His lyrics reinforce the idea that success gained honorably deserves celebration without fear of judgment. Ochiami Kwame's contribution add a reflective storytelling aspect that underscores resilience amid economic hardships. Um, his depiction of adversity, embodying loneliness, poverty, and relentless pursuit of a better life, sheds light on the often hidden struggles behind success. This narrative is nuanced by exploring societal attitudes where people are prone to ignore poverty but scrutinize wealth. Um, the song's blend of high life and modern rap acknowledges heritage while embracing contemporary expression. This duality aligns with the song's broader commentary on navigating a world where traditional values and modern expectations collide. The music itself embodies resilience as it discusses, evolving through diverse musical motifs, illustrating growth and adaptation, themes integral to the song's message. By merging its lyrical content, varied musical styles, and cross-genre production, Sika serves as a multifaceted reflection of the complexities tied to ambition, the celebration of hard-earned success, and the societal pressure surrounding wealth. The collaboration between Ochami Kwame and Kofi Kinata offers a unique examination of, of Ghana's socio-economic landscape, urging listeners to public um, perception of success. To conclude, the composition Sika serves as an exemplary model of musical in
Hopefully he realizes that he got disconnected. Nana, we lost you for a few seconds. Can you hear me? You're muted, actually. We cannot hear you. Can he hear me? Nana, please, can you unmute your...
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we lost you for the last minute. So if you can...
All right.
Go
Oh yeah.
back.
So I'm just concluding.
Okay.
All right. So broadly, Sika provides an inspiring example of how ethnic elements can be harmonized with contemporary practices in composition, offering insights into the complexities and fluidity of ethnic identity. This hybridization has broader implications, pushing forward the boundaries of music composition to be inclusive of different traditions while creating new, vibrant musical expressions. Such composition sets a precedent for future works that aims to reflect the richness of cultural heritage within an ever-globalizing musical landscape. Sika is not just a song, but a narrative vehicle that embodies cultural pride, the essence of growth, and the potential for traditional music to play a significant role in contemporary artistry. It affirms that embracing ethnic roots in modern music composition can lead to innovative, meaningful art that bridges generational divides and resonates globally. Now let's listen to the music. Then after that, we can talk. Yeah.
We cannot hear the music. Maybe you can share the audio on Zoom. Maybe you did not join with the audio. Because we could not hear the music.
Oh, okay. Please, just a second. Let me.
You would need to stop sharing and then start sharing again and tick the box where it says share audio, share sound. You need to stop sharing first and share again.
Okay. Okay. Share sound. Okay.
Oh my God.
Munko binifio na di menwa milijiso Mafo binisiko Miyo bishe Munko binifio na menwa milijiso Mafo binisiko Kasa machaka mabraboma Minye bimpode medi Nanda machaka manyamya Machili didi fili Sika moto daso sao Enyo mana bwada masao Mala misika na miliji Nyada mo biate tau kofi mayo Many wasika menye many wakaka menye ya Sika menye Aya kaka menye many wasika menye Baby I'm a medio Yeah My grandma peka shakum bekum My yema background I'm a betum Me pay sikaka crashing botum Hina my baby I get tum It rana drag on and tum tum Winnie what my sum Find the people no tum So show the light of tum We are 10 boys and single room with no light, no fun, the bishi boom, jobless, homeless, hopeless. Or rather you so I don't pack my carpet, my mean sim, I don't pack my carpet, my mean heat, my sister land the beer pie, my mean free me coming back in your right, my mean feel. Oh my mini menu I see coming. Watch out, oh my mini menu I see coming. One man, you are Ghanaian. Aya, Ghanaian. One man, you are Ghanaian. Baby, I'm a baby.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Nana, for sharing with us some overview of the contemporary Ghanaian music. I am wondering if there are any questions or comments from the public. Yeah, I just have one curiosity. If you think that besides rap and drill, are there any other styles that would reflect as efficiently this theme of wealth and happy pursuit in the contemporary Ghanaian music?
Okay, so basically, high life is used to address those issues, mostly high life and then hip life. But as I said, high life is mostly for the older generation. They appreciate that music more. So these two musicians, they thought of also getting some of the issues to the younger generation, and they in Ghana they actually like rap and then this new drill. So by fusing that, they're able to send the message to all generations. But by default, high life and hip life is mostly used for some of these uh, interactions. Yeah, I don't know if I answered you right.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you very much. We will now proceed to our last speaker before the break. I would like to invite Jonas Jurkūnas from the Lithuanian Academy of Music and Theatre to present us his paper, Peace and Paper, The Case of Robotic Folk's Album, Volume 1.
How? Take it out? No, so I'll be playing from here then.
You play from here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it has sound out.
Yes.
Okay.
So you were gonna play.
Where is it?
So don't connect anything.
No. Maybe from here, but I think we'll have not enough time. Huh? Okay.
If not, so then you connect with that and should be good to go.
Yeah. Is it possible to make a presenter mode here? Like there's one.
Yes.
No, I mean in here. So now it's doubled. Screen options. Oh. Oh. Yeah. Okay. Cool. One second. Okay. Thank you very much for inviting. It's a great pleasure to participate in this session, and I would like to talk about one of the musics I do is electronic music, and it takes roughly 50% of my musical creation time, and usually it balances out the working with acoustic instruments and acoustic music basically on a regular basis. So I will talk about the case of Robotic Folk album Volume 1. And this paper explores the main concepts and genesis of an album, Volume 1 of my solo electronic music project, Robotic Folk, through paradigms of human folklore and hypothetical robotic folklore. The album consists of 11 tracks. Each one is a miniature study of a certain musical element taken from folk music, such as form, texture, tuning, rhythm, timbre, improvisation, chance operations, reflecting various musical traditions in addition to contemporary electronic music composition and sound design principles. Volume 1 attempts to bridge a sonic gap between human ancestral sonic practices and hypothetical non-human sonic practices and cultural identities. The subtitle of the album is Artifacts of Human Intelligence in Robotic Folklore. Thus, on the first hand, stating a hypothetical situation of robots exploring the remains and archetypes of human culture in their programming codes, created in 2022, just before the boom of artificial intelligence in musical technologies. Nowadays, the post-human aspects encoding in the album became even more relevant. The project Robotic Folk started as a counterweight to my other compositional activities, such as composing art music, theater and film music, also music composition pedagogy in Lithuanian Academy of Music and Theater and Kaunas Technological University. And electronic music was always a significant part of my artistic path, mainly due to its novelty, openness, and simplicity of production and simplicity of spread. This has seriously triggered my chain of thought, thinking of how an electronic music composition and performance could be realized in a more fresh way. During a period of several years, I have collected a large body of musical sketches that I named Nocturnes for Friends, Nocturnai bičiuliams in Lithuanian, that I sent to my friends during the night, and these sketches actually mostly never received any feedback from my friends, but I'm okay with that. First robotic folk performance happened in Riga, Latvia, in Stikla Kalns event in 2019. The name of the album presents a hypothetical idea, a collection of robotic folk pieces that have traces of human culture. When working on an album, I had a dystopian idea. After a hypothetical collapse of human civilization, mechanical entities or robots followed a human-like evolution path. At some early point in this path, these so-called robots started cooperating, forming primordial social cells that initiated some possible cultural archetypes. Imagine that at some distant desert, a group of mechanic agents gather into some sort of cultural activity. That is where some sonic cultural events or music could happen. Here we may ask a simple question: how much of this human trace could be left? That would be a message of this album. Which compositional devices live through time, pass the test of time, and why? Which compositional principles are cross-instrumental, cross-epochal, or cross-civilizational even, and why? As I have stated earlier in my thesis on acousmatism, current electronic paradigm is prevalent form of sonic creation or compositional approach nowadays, regardless of its final manifestation. It could sound purely acoustic, electronic, or in between. And its main aspect is acousmatic sound. The acousmatism, acousmaticness, or acousmaticity of sound carries its own compositional preferences that are easily implemented in digital era. As Russolo was expecting, we operate in the realm of noise sounds, which are liberated, according to Varese, into a socially democratic domain, as John Cage says. I argue that it is possible to merge simple and archaic compositional principles with electronic paradigm without sacrifice on any side. Sure, there are indefinite examples of folk and electronic music mergers. However, quite often this happens for a price, whether either the electronic aesthetic gains a folky mask, or folk music gets a generous amount of electronic embellishments that possibly mask the raw essence of ethnical archetypes. I argue that it is much more forgiving to implement electronic and ethnic principles on separate levels of creation. If we agree that music is also text, we could borrow and apply the musical domain the idea of level system from Grimasian semiotics, whereas discursive level is one that is close to the surface, while semiotic level is the deeper one, not having a direct manifestation in the text. This means that from composer's point of view, applying ethnic elements to one level supposes the application of electronic elements on other level, thus avoiding the unnecessary clash of aesthetics when ethno and electro excuse me, aspects clash in the same level. In addition, I will explore compositional processes of the album pieces in detail, highlighting key conceptual aspects of each one. I believe that this paper would benefit to creators that reside in the areas of ethnic or electronic music or both, encouraging the exchange of compositional devices between these domains. Having composed pieces with folk singers, Intakas, Veronika Povilionienė, Rasa Sera, to name a few, also having collaborated on numerous electronic music endeavors, I have noticed that the application of compositional principles from a neighboring genre gives a fresh momentum to music creation. Lastly, I have to mention that much of the album's material comes from my multispectral contemplation of a guitar string phenomenon. Having a jazz guitar education in my early days, I still regard sound and pitches in 2D as if they are placed on a guitar fretboard. Being deeply inspired by musical act Oval, that is performed and composed by German artist Markus Popp, and its sound aesthetics and his experiments in computer emulations of a string using physical modeling algorithms, I pursued this path in the search for a digitally augmented expression of a guitar string. Each track in the album has various manifestations of this search. So starting from the aforementioned plot, the album formed its own narrative. The central theme of the album is a contemplation on the various linear and non-linear ratios between scale and strength. Bigger is not always stronger and opposite. When do the large-scale sound structures collapse under their own weight? When the infinitesimally silent and spectrally narrow sound objects transcend our senses without disappearing. Reciprocals of these ideas are also examined. The ratio of high and low, the flow and the flux of time in various environments, the relation of hearing and knowledge. The album is instrumental per se, however, there are snippets of human voices in foreground or giving a perspective of a past time, or in masked setting, exploring acousmatic voice phenomena and its sonic and informational duality. Also distant choral samples. Creative process. Broadly speaking, I ground my compositional process, no matter acoustic or electronic, on Rimantas Janeliauskas theoretical texts on sutartinės, Lithuanian polyphonic chants, especially his 4 variants of their binary tension. I am particularly interested in the usage of these devices in the deeper semiotic level, since I believe the surface level of sutartinės is too trivial and too simple to replicate without a context. Second aspect that I constantly return is Codex Ioannis. This is my private version of Neo-Riemannian theory that I invented without knowing the original. Thus, my version presented in earlier paper about 100 Springtimes case study has several idiosyncrasies. It helps me to organize pitches, also larger sections of the musical flow. In addition to aforementioned compositional prerequisites, certain statements were evident prior to the creation of the album. They stem from the manifesto-esque 6 electronic music criteria that I presented in Lithuanian Academy of Music and Theatre Composition Department in 2018, and they are such. First, the originality of the timbre of electronic music. As Joanna Demers says, we differ music from other sounds through timbre. The certain timbral space of electronic music has already been grounded for quite a long period of time, driving the quest for new, unpolished, or not overused timbral novelties. That is why I have decided to avoid common drum sounds as much as possible in the album. 2. Interactive polyphony. Computers evolved into powerful machines having an easy and rendering an easy possibility to stack uncountable amounts of tracks simultaneously. And this raises a question of interaction between these tracks that sometimes is abandoned. 3. Sonic purity or non-effectiveness. Probably one of the most popular devices to transform a signifying and representational sound into any new sound object is the use of sound effects, also called plugins. Initial sound could be transformed using any audio plugin such as chorus, distortion, delay, and so on. However, quite often this transformation process is evident for a trained ear, and the initial sound material is identifiable and evident. For an educated ear, possibility to recognize the initial sound source is not always a desired effect, hence the originality of timbre. 4. Non-square aesthetics. From acoustic to electronic, the prevailing pulse is divisible by 4. Let us turn to Messiaen sometimes to explore the possibilities of musical pulse and meter. Simply avoiding the 4 on the floor could be enough. 5. Conscious relation to the context. At least identify the ideas that nurture your creative processes. Know the pieces and authors that use similar approaches. 6. Conscious use of cliches. This term has a broad definition, often opposite, depending on the genre. However, being aware of certain cliches that constantly change, evolve, and fade out is a great benefit for any composer who seeks communication with an outer world. One constant compositional device I utilized in this album that stems directly from the acousmatic sound aesthetic is the process of acousmatization and deacousmatization of sound. I utilize the process of morphing a sound from representational to abstract and backwards, a texture morphing from one sonic ambience to another, or a sound object morphing from one functional space, in example high-pitched percussion, to another, in example a bass guitar. MIDI controllers play a great role in current sound aesthetics. I believe that the instrument, the media between a composer and the sound production algorithm plays a vital role in compositional process. Me having a guitar background, handheld non-keyboard controllers were the first choice. To name a few, Yamaha EZ-EG, that's a guitar-like controller, EO-Wave ribbon that I brought here, Starlapse Z7S or Genki Wave. These were main instruments that helped to shape the sound of the album. It is important to mention that these are just MIDI controllers. They do not produce sound. The sound is being produced by the computer and the software, such as Cycling 74 Max, Ableton Logic Pro. However, the peculiar and certain gestural interaction with the computer happened only thanks to these devices. Without further ado, how much time I have left?
Well, I think
we
audition.
Yeah, I still have. We will not go through all the pieces, but I just skip through. This is the first piece. It is called Şandor. And each piece has its own program note that is optional to read or not in the album. That and Şandor is hay cutters in Lithuanian, and in the program notes I state the orchestra of indigenous musical robots perform an opening song based on the simple story: blue sky, yellow field, herbs and grasses effortlessly win against the skeet. And now I can play. Where's the sound? We have the sound? Okay. listen to music also. The video is made by Škicas and Robotic Folk. So this piece has a call and response structure, mainly verse and chorus with a bridge that was rendered in such way that the folk elements reside in the semiotic level, while electronic devices are on the surface, on the discursive level. And the Lithuanian folk song that was used as a prototype for the creation of this piece was called Negiedokit gaideliai. Most Lithuanian know that song, and it also has a two-part structure, and we can listen to an example from Folklore Festival Subatelės Vakarėliai 2015. Here the first, the verse. There's also a version I wanted to show, a harmonized one by Jurkūnas that was performed in Vilnius in School Children's Song Celebration 2016. That's the response. So as you see, they are not direct copies of the original folk songs, but mainly the semiotic objects, as we can name them, the museums, are used in the semiotic level, or let's say the binary tension between these semiotic objects were used in the semiotic level. Then I will skip through some other pieces in the album. Of course, there is we have a limited time, so I cannot go in detail. And since I am an author of these pieces, I can drift a little bit too much to the details that maybe not are not within the scope of this presentation. So the second part, the piece is called Ani, and the small annotation by that piece says that the orchestra of indigenous musical robots perform the sunrise song. This track contains my falsetto vocal singing in a made-up language in the manner of Sigur Rós that they use their invented hop landing in their songs. In the background, the low-pitched voices, the acousmatized voices, counterbalance the high-pitched sounds of a glitched nature. Most of the sonic elements, aside from vocals, are produced from a physical model emulation of a stick falling onto the string. I also have to mention that I do not disclose the algorithm I use to produce physical emulation of a string on purpose to facilitate musicians and composers to invent their own way of creating their own sounds and use their creativity. Otherwise, since computer music is quite easily reproducible, there would be just a lot of copies of the same sound that I found. Here we can say that folk elements have also surfaced some at the discursive level, but they are invented ones and do not resemble any possible cultural tradition. Next one is called Partroka. Here I experiment with the matter of scale, how small sound can trigger very big sounds. But due to time constraints, we will forward a little bit. Then Pujam is it says the dream of a musically conscient automaton. Improvisational piece using a string and amplifier cabinet solutions. It has some atonal segments as well as tonal. The fifth piece, it's called Libai, and it is focused on the sequence of chords that you can see on the screen and the development of them, and also a notion of utterance that it never happens. And also it uses just intonation tune synthesizers. Phrase, it says concepts freeze into signs. This piece utilizes the formal process of morphing from glitched loop to stasis. Worth mentioning that despite of most experimental electronic composers abandoned blues, pop, rock compositional devices such as rhythmic and melodic ostinato that are called riffs, improvisational segments on a given chord or sequence, so-called vamps, even the melodic and motivic development. I have decided to try to incorporate these into this album, and this track in particular has a clear riff loop in the beginning that gradually reaches stasis mode towards the end. Sfera is within the dome and beyond. It's a Philippe Glass-esque sequence of chords that are deconstructed into separate segments, morphing from one spatial ambience toward another, all governed by temporal fluctuations in the rhythm. Collated textual elements produce certain melodic hoketus. Žalias Lapas has its own story. It's a small ensemble of indigenous musical robots reenact the primordial soup and the birth of a life in the universe. Actually, this track uses the formal structure from EDM track by Avicii, the track that is called XU. This is the comparison of Avicii track and my track. Also, this track theme has a tutti character borrowed from jazz rock, as from Chick Corea's tutti part in his track Spain. Boom Boom is a second dream of musically conscient robot. Also the contemplation of string emulation. Riga, certain homage to Laurie Anderson's piece on Superman. Why Riga? Because the sketch was produced in Riga airport while waiting for a plane. And the last one is Skrije. I'll talk on top. The orchestra of indigenous musical robots performed the closing song about the globally reversible entropy. Actually, it has two-part form, and first segment, and they split in the middle. First half has a bass riff, here's the split, and then we have a rhythmic vamp on a quintuplet-based rhythm. I always ask my friends to try to find where is one. You will not find it. So it's because all the rhythmic pulses are organized within tuplets, and they create very interesting cross rhythms. So tonalities are assembled in a way to not to replicate or repeat neighboring ones. Also, the tracks are organized following a metaphor of a day cycle, where the first track is at dusk, second is at sunrise, and reaching the dawn and the night feast at the 11th track. Some tracks do bear a strict separation between major and minor. More prevalent mode is mentioned first. The album was released by LOM label in November 11, 2022, presented in Bratislava LOM Space and in Lithuanian Academy of Music and Theatre Jurkūnas Sound Fair. The duration is 42 minutes. And short conclusions. The bricolage from sketches to finished tracks follows a simple rule. A sketch has no formal decisions, no formal process, while the later has sometimes multi-layered processes applied. What I tell my composition students, the path towards a finished composition might be distilled to this trivial formula: idea plus process equals whole. This means that the idea is usually a short glimpse, a flash of some sort of sonic moment that usually has no temporal quality on a larger scale and no form yet. Then certain techniques and processes are applied to expand and broaden the scope of this sonic idea to give it a dimension of a larger time form. This renders hopefully a sense of wholeness, making it plausible to be regarded as a finished sonic piece. The implementation of folk and electronic paradigms on separate levels, discursive and semiotic, gave me a new, fresh and transparent way of incorporating archaic and digital sonic universes into one album. Of course, it is rather questionable to analyze oneself backwards in time. From one hand, I do recall most of the intentions and operations made. However, a big part of the creative decisions I usually delegate to intuition and randomness to preserve the momentum of surprise, even for myself. I must state that I restrained from post-compositional reinterpretation of my music as much as possible, leaving this field to other possible scholars, But it is not an easy task. It is always very tempting for an author to comment and invent new aspects that were not on the table during the creation process, no matter how persuading they are now. However, however, whether we like it or not, upon finishing, the composition no longer is an exquisite property of an author, and this album is no exception.
Thank you, Jonas.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I just have a short comment. I don't know if you're aware of a relatively recent video game called Stray. It's essentially a cat simulator. You play as a cat in a post-apocalyptic city that is filled with robots that are living as a human society. And the soundtrack of this game is really, really similar to your music. And I find that really amusing, because your ideas are really similar to the game, and the soundtrack is really similar to your music. And yeah, I really love that soundtrack. I bought the album. So,
Thank you very much. Yes, it's a great honor to be compared with some big events in our musical domain, and actually all these ideas came to life before the rise, as I mentioned, of artificial intelligence, and now I find that they resonate with what is happening now, even in the artificial intelligence or even the game industry, as you mentioned. Thank you.
Okay, Jonas, thank you for your wonderful presentation. I just want to ask more about the binary principle, which you mentioned as one of the main of your, as I understood. And if I understand well, it permits both musical, structural level, and, as you say, semiotic level, and maybe this combining of ethno-archaic material and electronic is also kind of binary principle. So could you comment more what binary means to you?
As I sometimes say, it's I liked the quote from jazz pianist Corey Henry, where he mentioned that he's very conscious when he's practicing, but he tries to forget everything when he's improvising and playing. So actually, I could be quite conscious when I talk about my music or somebody else's music, when we do a listening analysis or score analysis and finding the binary oppositions. But for me, I find it a little bit dangerous to think about it while creating, but sometimes during some stops I try to reconsider and think about these situations. So basically I can say that I utilize these aspects on the subconscious level, but I assure you and myself that they are present there, because for me, a creative process is more about the flow and not about the theory and the process. But being educated both in Rimantas Janeliauskas class and testing the binary principles not only in folk music but also in other kinds of musics and using it as a device, I really encourage that, and actually I believe in this type of process, but it is not a conscious process during composition. The same like with semiotics, I find that Greimassian square and the use of oppositions in the meanings, it also has this binary principle that is applicable to music in some way. Of course, semiotics is usually regarded as another way street, not a composer creating a piece street, but more of piece being analyzed or a text being analyzed by some scholar. But also sometimes applying some semiotic devices, very rudimentary ones, I think it is very, very easy implementable and helps to progress with a piece in advance. Let's say from talking about a broader parts, like a formal process, I can say, well, if this part segment of the piece has some sort of active nature, then we mark it as plus in our binary school, and then I would say I will not clash it horizontally or vertically, but I will present something that is of a passive nature as a minus after. So I do this some sort of binary friction, let's say more horizontally. But as I mentioned, I try to get away from the representation of Lithuanian folk principles on the surface level, but then implement them on the semiotic level. Maybe it's too fancy word. During a creation, everything is legal creation. So, but basically, it's more of a holistic approach. It's not a very structural approach. And each structure I have ever made, it always collapsed at the end of the piece. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonas. Thank you for your questions and comments. We will now have a short coffee break and maybe resume at 12:15. Okay. Thank you.
Wonderful. So, friends, we're nearly there. Last two presentations for the conference, and there's a very lovely British saying of the best, saving the best till last, or certainly last but not least, is a very good way to sort of think about our final two contributions. And it is my absolute pleasure to welcome Desislava Dobreva from the Institute of Art Studies and Bulgarian Academy of Sciences. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good day. First, I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers for inviting me to be part of this conference. My name is Desi Dobreva, and I'm from Bulgaria. I'm a professional musician and a first-year PhD student at the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences. This report aims to present current practices in integrating folklore into contemporary Bulgarian popular music, an area in which I have more than 25 years of expertise. And just before I begin, I would like to inform you that I have provided links in the chat to the examples referenced in my report, just in case the connection is unstable. This way you can listen to them directly on your device if needed. So let's begin. Some researchers argue that pop music is folk music and folk is pop music. Looking back at early professional music, many genres from the 10th to the 14th centuries evolved from either folk song forms or poetic structures, as seen in the development of the motet and the madrigal. Since then, there has been a multitude of interactions between these genres. We will not seek to prove these interactions, as they are already widely known and discussed. Instead, I will focus on contemporary practices in Bulgaria, as I have both experience and professional expertise in this field. The first thesis I would like to present concerns the global sound spectrum, ranging from untempered tones to noise, from which each composer draws material, influenced by social, ethical, and religious factors, historical context, regional linguistic characteristics, aesthetics, and more. On the other hand, Jonathan Friedman, cited above, exploring the criteria for defining folklore, concludes that the characteristics of folk and pop music overlap. Friedman argues that folk music is a type of pop music and vice versa. He elaborates, to appreciate these affinities, we must set aside two classic signifiers of pop, commercialism and artist-centrism. Folk songbooks and audio collections tend to be homogeneous retrospectives. They gather well-known favorites that share certain linguistic, thematic, and stylistic characteristics. Just as important is the degree to which pop songs encapsulate and perpetuate mass tastes. Underlying these songs is a folk-like process in which the sounds and sentiments of a particular group are harnessed and played back, thus generating a sense of collective ownership. This is not to ignore the creative process of popular artists, but rather to stress that such a process cannot be divorced from its cultural milieu. Friedman, 2015. What I consider essential in the selection of music or symbolism from native or foreign folklore in contemporary contexts are the author's intent to, first, self-identify with folklore, second, keep a particular tradition alive, or third, convey a specific message through their music. I will use unexplored examples from my experience as a composer, performer, and producer to outline a position on current trends in the practice of ethno-pop music in Bulgaria. Each interpretation of ethnic elements acts as a form of cultural movement, a dynamic force driving the evolution and contemporary adaptation of traditions. This process ensures that cultural phenomena remain relevant and resonant within modern society. Thus, I support the hypothesis that adapting folklore is the most effective way to preserve cultural memory and sustain folk traditions in today's context. One of the most distinctive features of Bulgarian ethno-pop music is its deliberate synthesis of traditional elements with contemporary popular music forms. This often involves the integration of Bulgarian folk instruments such as the kaval, type of a flute, gaida, that's a bagpipe, and gadulka, type of a fiddle. In vocal terms, the primary distinction lies in the timbral delivery of the musical material. One approach preserves the distinctive throaty timbre of authentic Bulgarian folk singing, like this, while the other employs a soft tone characteristic of pop singing, incorporating ornamentations from traditional vocal styles, like this. The rhythmic structure in Bulgarian folk music is marked by its complex, irregular meters, such as 7/8 or 11/16, which are a key feature of regional musical identity. Here again, two approaches are observed. One emphasizes the diverse rhythmic patterns, blending them with modern instrumentation and either authentic or pop-style singing, while the other simplifies the rhythmic component, adjusting it to fit regular meters for broader integration. Harmonically, two main approaches emerge. One draws from the complex harmonies found in Western classical music and jazz, as well as the dissonances of Bulgarian folk music, excuse me, while the other uses simple harmonic structures, allowing for greater adaptability. Through chronologically organized examples from my work, I will analyze how these innovations contribute to the preservation of folklore and cultural memory. Now I will start sharing my screen. Share sound. Yes. You can see the screen now, right? So let's first examine the song Ах, къде е моето либе, which means Where is my love, from the year of 2004. The innovative approach for its time incorporates several key elements. First, the song is structured as a pop ballad, which sets it apart from all previous folk-style interpretations. Second, the arrangement is built upon the style of bands like Earth, Wind and Fire and Chicago, which makes it distinctly different from other folk songs. Third, the instrumentation includes non-typical instruments like flugelhorn and saxophone, and the popular in Bulgarian wedding music clarinet. In the video we're about to see, the flugelhorn is replaced by a trumpet. 4. The unique treatment of the asymmetrical 7/8 rhythm in the drum section features a hi-hat that emphasizes the offbeats, thus creating a 4/4 feel. Now let's see a little bit from that song. The next interpretation is called Jore, from the year of 2016. Traditionally, the song is performed in two voices, often a cappella, with the lower voice sustaining a drone on the root note. My rendition introduces a full rhythm section, a rich assortment of percussion, including the authentic tapan drum, a brass section, multiple vocal layers, and electronic sounds. The arrangement features a dual-layered pop rock and folk texture. Folk elements are prominent in the verses, highlighted by the tuppence rhythm, evoking horse hooves like this, tick, 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 while the full ensemble enhances the instrumental interludes. I composed two contrasting interludes, one inspired by American brass bands, the other by lively Bulgarian wedding music. Additionally, the same chord progression is used throughout, but with a twist. The second chord is major in the interludes and minor in the verses. Now let's watch the beginning of Jore.
Айде, готови ли сте?
That was the song Jore. So now let's examine the composition Dos from 2018. This short title plays on words. In Bulgarian folklore, Dos is commonly used as a term of address or phrase ending, while the acronym DOS recalls a computer operating system. Some of the compositional techniques I employed are, first, merging two folk songs into one. The tune Nakladoshe Sedenkyutu forms the verses, while the song Dos Dos Donele shapes the chorus. Second, the adaptation of the uneven meter of 9/8 into a standard 4/4 meter. So, the song Nakladoshe Sedenkyutu Du 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 Sedenkyutu becomes like this. Nakladoshe Sedenkyutu Du 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 Sedenkyutu. Third, the prominent role in the interlude of the Arabic instrument oud. 4, the use of the authentic folk dialect. And 5, the layered vocal arrangement features a drone in the second voice during the verses, while the choruses rise with 4 harmonizing vocals. Let's watch the video of Dos. The next interpretation, called Slunčice, which means sunshine, from the year of 2018, evokes the elaborate style of the 70s and 80s rock operas. It blends hard rock with pop ballad elements, gospel-inspired call and response vocals, and complex harmonies, as well as jazz virtuosic improvisations and a subtle hint of Bulgarian wedding music. The arrangement combines a diverse range of instruments and electronic sounds, including rhythm section, organ, accordion, gospel choir, additional backing vocals, and authentic folk voices. In the live version we're about to see, a traditional folk choir replaces the gospel choir. Some of the adaptation's characteristics are: first, the lyrical phrases alternate with dramatic vocal accents, emphasized by a distinct rhythm and rhythmic stops. Second, the original uneven 7/8 meter is transformed into a smooth 6/8. Third, the melody and lyrics are subtly delayed, falling slightly off beat. 4. The alteration in the melody moves the song from a natural minor to a Dorian mode. Let's watch a part of this song called Sunshine, or Slunčice in Bulgarian. The next composition, called Omilemi, which means I Long for You, from the year of 2019, reimagines the traditional folk tune in the foxtrot style. Omilemi takes a conceptual approach, presenting a complete, concise form, where the traditional song serves as the foundation. For that reason, I specifically composed interludes inspired by the style of 1930s American jazz orchestras. The arrangement embraces elements like the continuous instrumental improvisations, the wah-wah brass effect, the tambourine rhythms, the breakdown or solo parts, and the three equally balanced voices in close harmony, evoking the style of the Andrews Sisters' performances. Let's hear the beginning of the song Omilemi.
Omilemi jagodice, omilemi, komšisko
the final interpretation of the song Pusta Mladost, which means Cursed Youth, from the year of 2022, blends a crossover style with a return to the song's raw, archaic roots. The key innovation lies in assigning the lead role to a full ensemble of low-register drums and layered multiple vocals. The rhythm section in the original recording combines traditional Bulgarian tupans with toms, taiko drums, timpani, a double drum set, and additional percussion, creating a strong, powerful, distinctive sound. In reimagining Pusta Mladost, I aim to reinforce the sense of the local and the strength of native traditions. Each element here is intentional. The a cappella unmeasured vocal opening, the sudden shift from an a cappella to intense drums, the repetitive rhythms in multiple drums, the specific timbre and phrasing of the guitar in its initial appearance, the climax eruption into an eclectic mix of genres with references to Hollywood jazz orchestras, Native American tribal calls, Balkan wedding music motifs, and even to a popular dance hit in the 90s. And lastly, the reverent church-like finale, marked by constant rhythm patterns. All these references and the interpretation itself delve into the philosophical exchange between the local and global, probing the modern individual's quest for identity and cultural roots. We will watch the video from the climax of the song from a concert in 2022. Now I will stop sharing my screen. Through these analyses, I aim to illustrate key compositional strategies in adapting Bulgarian folklore for modern context, highlighting how these methods preserve and evolve traditions. Ethnomusicologist Martin Stokes argues that globalization in music involves a reorganization of space, integrating local traditions into global networks. From my experience as a producer, composer, and performer, I believe authentic folklore is crucial for cultural memory, but its relevance today depends on thoughtful adaptation. These selected songs above show how balanced interpretations connect past and present, retaining essential folklore elements while meeting today's cultural demands. Each adaptation demonstrates music's ability to transcend genres and social expectations, allowing ancient traditions to thrive in modern life and reinforcing the relevance of cultural heritage. This research not only synthesizes current practices, but also suggests future directions for the active preservation of cultural memory, as Jan Assmann describes. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much there, Desi. That was really, really wonderful, and one eye-opening, but also just a really nice bit of energy for us as well, following a coffee break as well. Absolutely wonderful to hear it all. And I think before I throw it out to questions, because it looks like there's going to be some questions from everyone here, I can see the enthusiasm. The sort of two things spring to mind immediately with it is, one, speaking from like my own context in Britain, Bulgarian folk music has a really great place of sort of admiration and fascination, and many people have been sort of drawn to it for exotic nature and so on. But one particular composer who's been quite interesting is the Anglo-Bulgarian composer Dobrinka Tabakova, and I don't know if you've come across her work at all, because how she sort of tries to bring all those elements in has been fascinating. Pardon?
Tabakova.
Yeah.
Yes, I've heard some of her.
Yes, because it's a really wonderful example. And then the other thing that came to my mind as well is there's a lot of wonderful comparison between what you do, but as well as groups like in Scotland, we have a group called the Red Hot Chili Pipers, who try to then do the same thing with Scottish folk music, but then it's, and I can see smiles, it's an incredible name for a group. And similarly in Latvia, there is Amowee, who do similar works with bagpipes, and they've done some really wacky collaborations, including stuff with Mongolian singers as well, which is, you never sort of imagine Latvia and Mongolia having connections, but they managed to bring it out, and it's just lovely to see in your work that you can show that adaptability and just how it sort of naturally fits as well, particularly the ragtime stuff. That was wonderful to hear. So I'm just, completely enamored, and I'm sure everyone here has just been captivated by it all as well. And best of luck with the PhD as well. It sounds like wonderfully great research to go into. So, are there any questions?
I just want to say that there are many examples that I cannot give here. But as you said, in Ireland, similarly, there are two huge bands, Chieftains and Planxty, that did the same thing with the Irish folklore. So there are many names that I cannot mention, but thanks to them, folklore is modernized and people know about different natures and cultures.
Much for that. So, any questions? You can tell she's a lovely person, so there'd be very nice answers, I'm sure. So I think you've answered everything that everyone has in their mind. So thank you very much, Desi. This was absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Very much.
So now it's, for me, a small moment of role reversal, because back when I was a lowly master student here, Mantautas was one of my lecturers, and it's my pleasure now to be chairing for him to give a lecture while I sort of just sit back and observe. So over to yourself there, Mantautas.
Here, nice to have you here as well, nearby, in this table. So I hope this conference will keep on attracting you coming back here. So, my theme today a little bit relates, of course, to what Jonas was talking about. However, I took kind of more wide cultural or philosophical approach with this. However, having worked myself quite extensively with AI over the last 2-3 years, generally seeing all the hype around it and all the myths, I thought I will give some insights on this field of computer-assisted composition, or we can say AI-assisted composition. Also, within the context of parallels I see of this field with something I would call ethno-consciousness, and also a relationship to, let's say, how contemporary music is created or can be created, and maybe what kind of tendencies we'll see in the future. After creating stage work, which is kind of postmodern take on recreating early Baroque opera with help of AI, generally working with various models and experimenting, playing with them, I was raising some questions to myself to how this new algorithms, which is, I mean, maybe nothing essentially new. This computer-assisted composition is there since 50s, let's say. And if we look before that, algorithmic composition has roots in Middle Ages and so on. However, if we talk about machine learning and AI, or what we call AI now, within the context of creativity, there are some questions which I keep on asking myself. And this presentation kind of involves some exploration and trying to answer some of these questions. So there's like really something new in these new algorithms which can help us to transcend some of the artistic boundaries we have within the current context of how we create music and how we can get inspired or influenced by AI, as well as how AI challenges our current paradigms of what is creativity, authorship, how our consciousness work. Is it really artificial intelligence which has its own, intention? Probably not yet, but will it be in the future? So I will now go through some thoughts which I think are very relevant and important for this field. Maybe some of you know there is this, let's say, grandfather or godfather of AI music, David Cobb, who wrote a number of books. He started working with algorithms, also using some machine learning already in the 80s, to imitate musical style. And first he tried to describe a style of certain authors with some formulas. And then later, around the year 2000, he came up with the conclusion that, to make sure that computer-based systems exhibit intelligent-like behavior, we definitely need multi-composer databases, because anyway, as there is the saying, no man is an island, that each creator is influenced by what came before. And what is the context? What is the cultural context? And already in 2001, he starts his book about virtual music and computer synthesis of musical style with these words, where you can clearly see that he tries to compare how important the relationships of all systems and interaction of them is important, and how basically the recombination is actually important part of the creation. So this influence is what inspires us to create. Our friend and colleague, Paula from Göteborg, is also very known in this field of AI music and artificial creation. And I think he has a very nice article in the Handbook of Artificial Intelligence for Music, where he is kind of also philosophizing and exploring the idea of agency between the tools, where in certain cases the agency of very smart tool might shift from the creator who is using the tool to the creator of the tool itself. Anyway, that agency always exists. I would compare it to agency which exists in musical instruments, for example, right? I mean, when you take a musical instrument as a piano or organ, it has this history of development over hundreds and thousands of years in some cases. And there is an agency of other humans which came before, which did something within that context. The same we can say about musical or cultural ideas, right? So, in a way, the AI tools, which are super smart, although without having their own agency, they can serve as some kind of distributor of human agency. And in a way, when we have somebody who is not a music professional or amateur, the agency of the person who is pressing the button and selecting what to use from what AI generates, you know, it might lead, as also Paula argues, to some kind of homogenized or non-interesting results, because that agency of the user of the tool is reduced to minimum. So this is maybe a very good description of what is happening, for example, with these toys, which you can find online, press the button and generate some kind of pop song in a certain style, which is actually just a multiplication of existing things. But there are other ways of using these tools. Now, how it all connects with some kind of wider cultural perspectives. If we take cultural just Blacking and his influential book, How Musical is a Man, I think what was interesting for me to connect here with also how the AI models work is that he already in '73 argued that the creative individual is kind of a medium through which the community's consciousness and all the cultural knowledge is expressed. So it's not that it is being created individually by some extent, but it's always very much influenced and built on what exists around you, which is very, similar of what we talked about, the agency within AI models. Furthermore, I think we can also talk, my presentation name connects, of course, to the idea of Jung's collective unconscious, so probably everybody knows that, so I didn't put it here, but I think another influential book of Richard Dawkins, The Selfish Gene, who talks about the fact that there is a certain genetics in culture as well, where you can have memes or cultural ideas which travel and transpose themselves from culture to culture, and there is a certain meme pool, and it involves and diversifies the culture. By the way, I think the most popular result of the use of his word meme is something completely different now. But I mean, I'm not talking about the cat pictures here. Well, partly maybe, but I mean, there is much more interesting meaning of this as a certain cultural gene. So you could say that AI can also be a certain replicator of such cultural DNA of humanity, and it's very much depends on what is in the model, so to say. I was just looking to the same problem and looking for some from my memory and like generally some books I've read which resonate to me with this idea of collective creation and individual representation of a certain wider cultural context. And so we can also find that in writings of Lévi-Strauss, where he talks about myths. However, it's just another form of cultural expression. And as myths reveal some kind of shared unconscious symbols within the cultural field, AI tools also kind of disparate the data into synthesized structures, which we could call new. What is new in the end? It's just something which is resynthesized in a way from what we already know. We cannot create a new universe. We are just recreating the existing one. And it echoes our tendency to find some kind of order or some kind of patterns with what we perceive as chaos, with the possibilities of our brains. Yet another example of the same, however, from another context, is this beautiful book by a computer scientist, Hofstadter, where he talks about Gödel, Escher, and Bach, where he tries to find some kind of loops within human creativity, and how he argues that recursion allows for layers of meaning and innovation, and that human cognition and creativity relies on some loops where patterns reference themselves. So also building on this wider idea of cultural field, which we all draw from consciously and subconsciously, and actually is especially newer algorithms such as transformer models as GPT actually function on very similar principles. The algorithms are built more or less on this, also including the memory and checking the input, which kind of is kind of a prompt which activates certain parts of that artificial unconsciousness. And there is also a very interesting book by a science journalist, Contain Multitudes, the microbes within us, and the grander view of life, where he is trying to find parallels between cultural systems and how biological systems function. And also show this importance. I mean, in the end, we are also ecosystem. We are a certain kind of, let's say, life form, which has probably higher level consciousness than the other life forms we can find on Earth. However, we still function on the same principles, and this interconnectedness, which we find in culture, which we also can see in the comparisons of Dawkins, they are also important within our consciousness and subconsciousness as a whole. I'm a big fan of this theory, which kind of tries to unify how humans function and how computers function. Neuroscientist Carl Friston, over her last 20 years, developed so-called the free energy principle theory, which tries to explain how biological systems function, how human brains function, as well as its work is possible to be used to explain how the machine learning algorithms work. Although it seems to be complicated, let's see, I will try to explain it to you in a very simple way. In a way, Friston is arguing that all living organisms are trying to predict or minimize surprise or uncertainty based on their own experience and comparing it with certain sensory inputs and seeing how it contradicts or, you know, like follows the model which exists. So in a way, the free energy is kind of correlation between surprise and expected surprise. And it's not just a static way, not just a static thing, but it's like, so to say, it's a feedback loop. I put this example for us as musicians maybe to better understand and explain this. So in this drawing you can see part of the external states. So it is external state hidden or unknown to us, let's say, as somebody who is not that person, but you or this person. And for example, in here, other person's mind holds a hidden emotional state. We cannot grasp directly, but we can infer it through expressions like, for example, sound, tone of voice, or music. And then there is a sensory state, the sound, which captures observable signals, which are generated by that other person, which represents his hidden state. Well, to us hidden, not to that person. And it acts as a certain bridge, allowing us to perceive and interpret this. And then there are so-called blanket states, which relates, for example, also to how Markov chains and Markov blankets function, the most simple algorithms of machine learning. In this case, we have a sensory state, and where our ears just kind of get this sound, right? And then we have active state of our brain, listening and interpreting this sensory input. And then we have internal states which represent internal response to the sensory input. So in this example, brain processes the sensory signal, sound, and generates emotional reaction influenced by my previous experience, my beliefs, my knowledge about that person, my knowledge about that certain musical style, or cultural associations which that sound might invoke for me, or not. It depends. For example, if that other person is a pygmy or Lithuanian. So, for example, probably if somebody singing sutartinės, I would perceive the emotional states better than somebody singing Indonesian song, for example. And then, in a way, this minimization of free energy is like a constant loop where brain is trying to minimize it by reducing the gap between predictions my brain does and incoming sensory data. And it happens all the time. So in this case, it works like aligning my internal perception of other person's emotion and intention with the actual sensory input sound by adjusting it to my internal model, which can be compared also to trained AI model. I mean, everything we do with computers is actually just trying to model how we work in a way. So, I mean, natural versus artificial is in a way trying to recreate world, maybe, or trying to recreate ourselves in some case. So that's why this system is kind of applicable to analyze both human brains, and it's used by neuroscientists as well as AI scientists. However, as some of the neuroscientists, including Robert Zatorre, I kind of got tired of putting in citations and books in the presentation, so I just mentioned it by word, argues that actually unexpectedness or entropy, as it is used in the theories of information systems, is extremely important for creativity. Actually, this unexpected is the essence of creativity. Because to create something new, we must break something which existed before, right? I mean, it's nothing more different than that. So in a way, I'm now playing with this free energy formula by trying to introduce the creativity in it by defining the fact that actually creativity is free energy multiplied by a certain entropy scaling factor, which can be made up of different things, let's say, like diversity, cohesiveness, and distinctiveness of your data set. Would it be artificial data set or data set within your brain? This is why, by the way, I think it's very important for artists to travel and to know a lot of cultures and to delve into other art forms, because the diversity of your data set can not only help you with predictions, but also introduce heightened, say, entropy within your brain to break something, to make mistakes, and to create something new. So now, quickly, if we look to the music in digital domain, we can see now that AI is basically being used in all kinds of stuff. so including control functions or digital scores, and for sound design and transforming audio forms, for technical and creative functions, basically trying to disrupt everything what exists there if we look to the kind of classical ways of classifying digital music domains in the computer. There is very important thing to mention that based on this concept of entropy, we can make the systems, let's say, either multiply and copy something which exists already. So as it happens as well, for example, if we go to improvise with certain type of musicians with certain experience, we tend to produce results of certain aesthetics and very little new comes up, right? Unless we have intention to explore and to break things and to invent new things by introducing more, say, freedom, chaos, and mistake. So in very extreme examples of this, we can say that, you know, if we have little entropy, we focus on exploitation, and it can reach levels of plagiarism, just copying something. While on another side, we can explore, sometimes reach levels of nonsense or something which is too complicated for our brains to perceive. But probably there are very rarely examples of this pure thing. Let's say, well, sometimes there are, but anyway. In similar ways, we can also use the artificial intelligence tools. We can use them to multiply with low level of entropy and human input and human agency input. In that case, we get copies of something which exists already and which is basically just multiplication of the same. Either we can use it as a tool to create something new. Is more or less the same what I just said. In a way that, of course, we strive to survive and we try to minimize this free energy, that at the same time, especially within the context of art, and the mistake and creativity requires more of that free energy. I also just thought I will mention, I'm mostly using, for example, this tool, which is called Composer's Assistant, to work with score-like data. And why I'm using this tool, because I'm a professional composer anyways. I want to know what's happening there, and because the tool is open source, I can exactly know what the code is doing. It also treats instruments differently, has these entropy or temperature parameters, and also it can be customized or fine-tuned. So basically I can train it on the music I want it to be trained on, and create this kind of artificial subconsciousness or cultural musical fields, which then can help me to explore some new musical ideas. Basically, through working with it, I came up with all these ideas and moments which I was just talking about. I think especially this feeling or idea of artificial subconscious, or a model which is based not on my own experience, but a model which I can create based on the experience of somebody else's, can help me to create some results which are unpredictable for me. By the way, David Cope started working with artificial music generation because he got into the creative block. So he started playing and analyzing, this kind of algorithmic composition systems to give him some initial ideas to get out of this block. So now connecting a little bit to the philosophy I started with at the beginning to finish my presentation. I think this idea of AI model as certain modern vessel for this ethno-cultural consciousness or wider cultural field is an interesting idea, because this is how it works actually. AI models are in a way reflections of certain collective identity, based of course on the data set they have been trained on. It's kind of a shared language which can be extracted from it by prompting it with a certain information. Also, it kind of lets us to redefine the idea of authorship and ego of the creator. It reminds us that actually nothing is absolutely new, that we all stand on the shoulders of the giants, that, you know, even if we write something now, we are influenced by thousands of music creators which came before us. Because each note, each concept is actually the creation. So we cooperate not only with people nowadays, but also with people who have long since gone, and through the ideas and concepts of archetypes or collective subconscious or memes or whatnot, we are still being influenced by their agency nowadays, and it's a beautiful thing. So maybe like we have to kind of rethink and finally let die this romantical concept of, you know, original creator who creates something new. You know, I think it's not really important so much that now as the understanding that our work is expression of wider cultural field. So, you know, everything is basically more or less about that. You know, you can blend aesthetics, you can blend global and local. You can do that not only utilizing now your own subconsciousness and your own musical intuition, but you can create artificial musical intuition which can co-create with you. So I think that is a beautiful thing, and it's a nice way of how to use the AI for your own creation as another tool, another instrument. You know, the role of entropy and this data set diversity is very much important, of course. And diversity is important everywhere in the end. And you know, basically is that, you know, we don't have to be afraid maybe of the things we create, even the tools we create, even though they are very powerful, but we have to understand them, and they can help us to reach certain, you know, dialogue across cultures and across time with our colleagues from other countries and people who came before us. I just thought this kind of fits philosophically to everything I was talking about, because it also talks about intention and agency, because intention is the main thing. It's very important not to forget that all artificial intelligence tools and systems do not have their own agency, and anyway, everything depends on humans. How we use it, why we use it, and that we should just enjoy life, you know. Okay, so if you have any questions or further ideas about this topic, please write me. Thank you.
Wonderful discussion, and also I think it's always very good with AI to sort of break it down in that kind of manner, because as you say, there is this double-edged sword in the way we sort of talk about it, either because people, as you pointed out, are using it just to replicate, or others who are actually trying to use it in a creative manner. So it's always very good to sort of break that down. And one thing I sort of was thinking as well when you were going through the discussions is it reminds me a lot of the work of Christopher Caldwell in the 1930s, where he talks about how all of human culture sort of appears in that same kind of way as a reflection of reality. And what he essentially underlines is, for example, the folklore traditions in Britain. We don't include kangaroos because it's not an animal that was present. So we don't have that, say, within our data set and so on. And so within AI, there is that similar kind of process happening. And so it's really quite interesting that, as you say, even though it sounds like a big, scary electronic digital thing, it still has that very human element to it, either because of what it's been fed or just the fact it is something created by humanity. So I am curious, does anyone have any questions or any thoughts? Andres, over to yourself.
I don't know if I will be able to put it in a coherent sentence. I was just having this idea that there are fundamental differences between collective subconsciousness and AI. As well, there are similarities because, yeah, we all function on sort of deep learning. AI is being fed with all the data in the world, and we are being fed with all the data that surrounds us. But we have a rather limited capacity, and we're kind of constrained with our geographical and cultural environment. And that kind of makes us a little bit different from the AI, which can scour everything from the internet that ever existed in the world. But on the other hand, we use internet so much these days, it kind of replaces our local culture, and this information on the internet is being fed to us by AI. So it's kind of an interesting interconnection between real and artificial intelligences in our mind. Yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, the first point you are touching upon, I would call it the parts of this entropy side, the part of, chaos, or the part of we have no control of. We have been born in certain circumstances, certain geographical region had certain influences, and we still build our model somehow, right? So now on internet, yes, of course, they are trying to create these models from big data sets, but apparently there is a certain limit what you can do with these algorithms. There is one thing. Another thing is that these models, or what are in these models, or what is in big data is similarly random. So there is also like a very huge amount of entropy in there, So it's very, and we think that we can control it, but we actually don't, so we kind of have to accept it too, to my understanding. It's just that, like, we might put certain intention in these kind of tools to cooperate or work with them, or maybe to use them for analysis. Now, I see, for example, much bigger problem in the second part, which you said, that nowadays everybody thinks that the worst part with this AI is its generative part, but actually the worst part is something else, is all the manipulation and marketing which is done with the help of big data and AI learning, which is completely unethical and completely uncontrolled, So, I mean, it's, however, intention and agency again comes from humans to use it in a certain way. So AI in itself is just another tool, and it can be also used to combat everything. It can be used, for example, to filter out all the spam content from internet. It's maybe like 95% of it. This also, last remark, it's very interesting because what they found out that if AI is being trained by the data generated by AI, it's getting dumber, like much dumber. So,
wonderful. Are there any other questions? Or yep, Marius.
Okay, very interesting and wide topic these days, especially. And as I understand, it took kind of optimistic approach, an enthusiastic approach to this issue, while there are people who are more like apocalyptic towards this. Yes, but maybe to focus to the topic of the conference, do you think it could lead us to the way of traditional thinking, where individualism wasn't important, and the repetition of traditional things was way more important? Could it be pushed towards that, or maybe the third way?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you know, it's very hard to predict what will happen tomorrow because there are very many variables. I think the truth is somewhere in a certain balance and understanding what you are doing. I think we have to start from that, right? I mean, I believe that there should be bigger balance between, of course, we create something original. I mean, otherwise, I personally wouldn't even find the motivation in myself. I mean, I'm not so much interested in replicating. I'm much more interested in, experimenting and doing something new. But at the same time, it's very important to acknowledge a certain kind of yin and yang, right? That we are part of the bigger thing. And this bigger thing is our cultural or society or community or global community as humans on Earth. And also that works not only in space but in time as well, that we are influenced by everything what happened before. Now with this kind of multiplication, application, I think things develop very fast now. Of course there are a lot of styles and a lot of aesthetics which came out from a certain culture. Now we have like a huge increase how many styles are kind of appearing, and it's even sometimes hard to define them, and they are synthesis of some other styles, and so on. I think it's bad if it's done superficially. If people understand the context and have the motivation, it works. If not, then it might be dangerous. Because what comes with powerful tools, and this is where some, apocalyptic stuff can come from, that the powerful tools have also powerful repercussions when you think about it. For example, these quite useless AI generation engines, which you can find on internet, are being used by people who have not much professional understanding by music, but they are still generating loads of stuff and uploading it to Spotify, for example. Already a few years ago, it was almost impossible to find anything interesting on Spotify. Now, the amount of content increased 10 times, and most of it is just spam content. On the other hand, you can use AI to filter it out, probably, but these algorithms are not implemented as fast as generation algorithm, and it's a problem. But again, it's a human problem. So I think everything depends on our own decision and intention, and our conscious understanding to make certain decisions and make certain decisions about our own creation and what we want to do with our time.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
One more question. You have some experience in that field. You created the Baroque opera using AI. The performance was half a year ago, probably, yeah?
It was a year ago, and then, there were some performances this summer as well, yes.
Yeah, what is your experience here, maybe briefly? And what about authorship? Who's the author of this? Cooperation with AI or something else?
Yes, I can answer to this in this way, that the authorship, and this is where we have to rethink it a little bit maybe, it depends on the amount of agency and your own decisions you put into this. So, in this case, because I was doing that in a very, manual way, in a such way that I was generating all opera measure by measure, and sometimes I was regenerating each measure maybe 20 or 30 times until I got what I thought is interesting. Also then afterwards correcting it by hand. So it was more like co-creation process. I would say that I was using this algorithm more as a tool to help me, as a certain artificial subconscious, which is trained on early Baroque music, and which helps me to kind of find musical ideas which could have been, but have not been, of course, but could have been written in that age. On other hand, probably as a contemporary person, I was choosing also something which is a bit weird or not typical, very subtly, like from certain parallel reality of possible early Baroque. So that was the interesting part for me. So in this case, I believe that the authorship is much more humans rather than machines. On the other hand, it is because this tool I use, it has variables which I can change, which I can express my agency through. I can change the temperature, I can change the type of rhythm I want, and so on. If that would be just red button you press and it generates something, which happens with some of the online systems, I would say the authorship is more of the person, or agency is more of the person who creates the tool, who creates the decisions. But there is always also entropy in that. So, I mean, you can keep on clicking that button until you get something which is really interesting, but maybe you have to do that for 1,000 years, who knows? But you still have then to have an understanding and to evaluate and choose, because this is also something which comes from human agency, not from the machine.
Brilliant, thank you. Last chance, are there any other questions? Fantastic. So firstly, thank you very much there, Mantautas. That was absolutely wonderful discussion, and thank you everyone for such a great discussion. And it is my pleasure now to hand over to Marius to bring us to a close.
Okay, so dear guests and colleagues, the conference has come to an end, and well, we had 3 days of very intensive program and 16 papers presented, 2 wonderful concerts. And on behalf of the organizers, I would like to thank all the speakers for sharing insights and experiences with us. And I would also like to thank all the attendees for their participation and engagement throughout the conference. And as most probably you know, the papers from the conference will be published after the additional evaluation in a separate peer-reviewed edition of Principles of Music Composing. So they will be available in probably more developed version. And once again, I would like to express my gratitude to the Lithuanian Academy of Music and Theatre and Lithuanian Composers Union for helping organize this event, and to the Lithuanian Council for Culture for sponsoring it. And most importantly, I would like to express my gratitude to the people who organized this event and made it possible. Andrius Maslekovas for coordinating the event, Aistė Vaitkevičiūtė, Paulius Prasauskas for their assistance, Roberto for sound and video, and also Rimantas Janeliauskas for being the brains and inspiration for the conference. Thanks for all of them and all of us. And maybe Rimantas would say a few words as well.
I would like to say thanks for all of you who contributed to this event. Contribution of each speaker and moderator deserves great attention and gratitude. I'm sure we'll continue our collaboration in the future. I hope, dear guests, that we'll meet again in Vilnius, maybe next year. Thanks you. Good luck.
So thank you once again, and please join us at the buffet to continue discussions and communication.